What up, guys? Head over to the website, elliottmarshall.com, click on free tools, and you have two options right there. One, how I start my day, every day. It's called Start Your Day Like a Champion, going through a process every morning so that I have the most skillful day possible. And also, if you are a jiu-jitsu nerd like I am as well, I have a little Mountain Domination instructional. So go over to the website, elliottmarshall.com, grab your Start Your Day Like a Champion, grab your Mount Domination if you're into jiu-jitsu. Let's go. What's up, guys? This is former UFC fighter Elliott Marshall, and you are listening to The Blueprint. I believe that there's a blueprint of how the most successful people structure their lives. They don't all do it the same. They don't all do the same things. And on this podcast, you're going to hear inspirations, motivations, and stories about how they go through their life. These stories will give you clues and tricks of exactly how you can discover your passion, find your power, and then go give your purpose to the world. Thank you so much for listening. Let's jump into this week's episode. What up? This episode of the podcast is with Nate Bailey. Nate Bailey is a mindset, leadership, and entrepreneur coach. He hosts these 4-day retreats and a 24-hour retreat on leadership and mindset building, working with a team, things like that. We talk the whole podcast all about leadership, how he got into leadership, his path through it. So I hope you enjoy. If you do, I always ask, give it a like, give it a share, give me a review on the website or on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this. So without further ado, here we go. Nate Bailey. Nate, how you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining the podcast. Thanks for, as I switch over to Riverside here, dealing with my technical difficulties. Hopefully I won't have them anymore, but I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, man, we are in the same fields in some ways, right? Like I am in, with martial arts. I use martial arts as my vehicle, but mindset, performance, success, and all of that stuff, right? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Tell everyone what it is that you do.
You bet. Well, currently I work with entrepreneurs and business owners mainly. And I run a few different events. I run like a 24-hour kind of military style. I was an officer in the Army. I have a good friend that's former Navy SEAL. And so we do a 24-hour leadership-based military style training, right? So like stress and pressure of the physical to teach leadership, communication, mindset, perseverance, attention to detail, all that stuff. Then I also do a 4-day program called Unleash the Leader Within. It's very similar, but it's not 24 hours straight, so it's a little bit different setup. But yeah, I coach entrepreneurs and business owners in leadership, mindset, business, and life, and just help them to get to that next level, whatever that is for them.
When you talk about leadership, right, it's a hard thing. I sent the CEO of our company, because he has 2 sons and I have 2 sons. I sent him this video by Inky Johnson today. You know who Inky is?
Yeah, I love Inky.
Inky, right? Yeah. Love Inky. And it was like, look, as leaders, everyone thinks that, you support them, and like you're there to support them. But like, do you ever tell them? He's like, I got kids. And imagine if I never told my kids I loved them. But I'm like, yeah, they know I love them. They know I care about them. But do they? Was his question, right? Do they?
Right.
So, and that, like, I was like, damn, that's a great question. Because, and I definitely do it on the fatherhood side, right? Like I make sure I tell my kids I love them. Mm-hmm. But on the leadership side, I think we can slip on that sometimes, right? Like, you're like, oh, of course I care about my employees. I'm here for them and I provide a job for them and all of that. Yeah. What is your take on leadership?
Well, I mean, I would 100% agree with that. With I think that's just naturally, like when I was deployed in Kuwait and I had 42 soldiers I was responsible for, and we were essentially running entrance points in and out of these camps. So we're checking vehicles, searching vehicles, checking to make sure the people coming on have access. And and there's a few different places throughout, right? My platoon would be spread out throughout the camp, and then there's the headquarters where the air conditioning is, and I could sit in there all day, or I could get out and I could just like spend time with my guys and get to know them and show them that I cared, and that, hey, if they're going to be out here, I'm going to be out there with them type deal. So I think that's kind of what Inky is talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like just really making sure that they know that I give a shit. And yeah, I think it can be easy, to just get caught up in the mission or what you're doing and the day-to-day stuff and get away from that easily if you're not careful. But I think it's extremely important, just as important as it would be to let your kids know that you love them. And right. I mean, just as important, especially if you want to be successful, and not just for success, right? Because you actually, as a part of leadership, I think is you're a leader because you care about people, because you love like impacting people and bringing them together. And so, I mean, leadership to me, that's what it's all about, is like the ability to get more out of an individual together as a team than they would on their own by themselves, right? Like you're able to draw more out of them as a leader. And so I think that's one of the main key characteristics I see inside of leadership.
And I think it's probably also one of the main key problems that we're having in society right now is a lack of good leadership.
Yeah. Man.
In so many places, and not political here, like, even though, I mean, obviously it touches into politics.
Of course.
But where do you see the flaws currently? When you talk about leadership, where are you seeing these issues?
Yeah, that's a good one, because I think now more than ever, in my time, right, as long as I've been around, I'm 46, I feel like we need leaders more than ever, right?
Yeah.
And what is it? I don't know. I think somewhere along the way, I think we failed. You could point at the younger generation, but like, who's the ones that were leading the younger generation? I mean,
this is my question, man.
Like, just kind of like staring at the guy right in front of you on the screen, right? It's like, well, that's kind of whose fault is that?
If my kid can't put the dishes away and he's 10,
yeah.
Right. Okay. So now he's 10. I use the dishes because there's a video of me and my kids, of me, like my kid, I have at the time he's 2 and 5, and I'm making them standing there while they put the dishes away, instructing every piece of it. Right. Like, it's more work for me. Yeah. In that moment. But if they get to 10 and they can't put the dishes away, it's not their fault. They were just never taught to put the dishes away. Right. Like,
yeah. 100%.
So I agree with you. This blaming it on the younger generation, I just don't understand. I can't grasp it. I have kids these days. It's just the lowest hanging fruit there is.
Yeah, and the reality is I think a lot of the leadership today isn't the younger generation as well, right? It's our generation and older.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. I think I don't know. Our society's cultures definitely felt like it's shifted rapidly in the last 10, 15 years for sure. Even especially in the last 5 years sometimes we're so quick to try and get away from like old school tradition and traditional ways of being and living, that a lot of the great things about that get lost as well. And I think,
it just takes time, right? Don't you think? Like, things take time. Like, I think COVID was a great example. And not on the political side. Like, it was a new virus. Like, we didn't know. Yeah. So like, stop saying everything's going to be okay, because you don't know that. And 2, stop saying that this is the answer, because you don't know that either. But I think the problem is us as a society. The second somebody says something, we're like, oh, that's their opinion. That's the truth. They can't be wrong. And then we just crucify them, right? If they're wrong,
Well, I think that's a part of the problem. Like, as a leader, you got to be willing to be
dead wrong
and not You know, because you're never going to make everyone happy, and that's not your job as a leader to make everyone happy. Your job as a leader is to make the best decisions that you can based on the information that you have, the experience that you have, and for, you know, the majority of the people that you have that you're working for or working with or that you're, you know, leading.
And at the time, right? Like the information that you have
absolutely.
at the time. Hindsight's always 20/20. Like it's so easy to go back and be like, oh, that was dumb. You know?
Yeah.
But like, okay, did I do the best I could in a moment?
Yeah. Because we are so quick to persecute right nowadays. And social media or what, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that's got to be a big part of it, right?
Well, it's social media. It's the 24-hour news cycle, right?
Yeah.
It's, you know, the second somebody does something wrong, it's on the news.
So now you're afraid to make decisions because of that, right? And you almost can't blame someone. I mean, human nature, right? Like, who wants to be persecuted for doing their job or for having the courage to make decisions and hard decisions? And so,
a bad one, right?
Yeah.
A bad one.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
I'm sure for you as a leader, when you go back and look at it, some decisions you made, you're like, "Ooh, I butchered that one."
Yeah, 100%.
You know, 100%. So,
and when you are developing young leaders, like, you want to be able to give them the opportunity in the room to fuck up, right? Like, to make mistakes, because that's how we grow. That's how we get better. But again, back to our point, it's like almost that room isn't there any longer.
Sports is such a great metaphor for improvement, you know, like, or physical activity, for example, right?
Yep.
Like, because it's like, okay, I'm trying to make a layup. No one makes the layup. Failure's the whole thing at first. Right? Yeah. No one can do it, ever in the history of the world. Michael Jordan, you know, I was watching his Hall of Fame speech again, you know, over the weekend because I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan.
Yeah.
And he brings up, he had the dude that took the spot on his high school team when he got cut there, you know? Yeah. And he's like, man, I just wanted to let the coach know I worked so hard that season that I got cut because I needed to let the coach know that he made the wrong choice.
Yeah.
But that failure is what did it.
That's
you know?
What drove him.
And we're taking it away. And two, when you do fail, we're killing people. So somehow we have to stop this, right? Like, I think we're both agreeing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Tell me about this 24-hour thing that you talked about, right? Like, when you bring the leader in, like, what does that day look like?
Yeah, it's 24 hours straight through. It's a little bit intense, right? I mean, by design.
Yeah.
But you're bringing in a group of individuals and some may know each other, some may not. It just kind of depends on the event, but, you're bringing them in, you're turning up the stress, especially early on. And then as it goes, as you see them start to get it and come together, you kind of ease up, by design as well. But
when you say turn up the stress, what do you do?
Well, there's like in the beginning, right? In the beginning, there's a gear list that they're supposed to have, and 100% of the time, someone doesn't have something right, you know. So it's just guaranteed that. So that just to lay out their gear and to go through that. So you're turning up the stress, telling them to hurry up, shortening the time that they have to do things, so that almost you just in a way setting them up for failure. But you're doing that because you want to see how they respond as leaders, because in life, you may think you got this X amount of time, and then all of a sudden you don't. And what are you going to do? How are you going to react? Because again, the focus is on leadership. We're not trying to make anyone quit. That's not the design of the course.
So it's not Navy SEAL-ish.
No, I mean, it's, we have a former Navy SEAL there that helps. But yeah, we're not trying to make anyone ring a bell. We want everyone to make it through. We want the focus. We're teaching and talking throughout, right? So we'll have an evolution, and then we might bring them together and just really talk about it. What happened, and what did they learn, and how can they take that and go back home and implement that and make their life better, make their business better, make themselves better as a leader, father, husband, or whatever it is. So yeah, well, we do log PT, we do long ruck marches with heavy weights. They're up throughout the night. They're not sleeping. So they're starting to get tired and fatigued. And, We'll get them in the water. Like, we'll have them do 1,000 burpees and just do them all perfectly together. And if they don't, there's a penalty and, that kind of stuff.
So
right?
it's
Just
very physically demanding as well.
very physically demanding, mentally demanding as well. And again, always the conversation's coming back to leadership and
What do you think it is about the physically demanding activity? Because sometimes when I have to have a difficult conversation, one of my favorite things to do is go train like jujitsu first.
Yeah.
And like, look, I don't beat them up and I don't want them to beat me up,
Yeah.
So, and I can kind of control that. But like, you
Yeah.
know, I make it hard for both of us, and you do this physically hard activity together.
Yeah.
And then the conversation tends to just go so much better.
Oh,
So
man.
much more
Yeah.
opens up. What do you think it is about that?
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't, there's just the stress and pressure of the physical is such a, it's a really good simulation for the stress and pressure that you will get in real life. And then, to your point, I think when you do something like that, when you go through something hard and challenging with another person or a team of people, there's a bond there that is created that I don't know many other places you can create, especially in that quick of a time. And then I also think it just like breaks down walls, right? Like, I mean, if you've been rolling around on the mat with somebody for an hour or whatever it is, you could kind of just get right to it after that, like, because you guys are opened up and you've just gone through that.
All your
experience
insecurities go away.
together. Yeah.
Like when you physically get stressed, all of your insecurities go away. And it's just a very interesting thing.
It is.
What led you to this field, man? Like, because, it's not a traditional job, quote unquote, right?
No,
so like,
not at all.
how did you get here?
Yeah, well, I always kind of go back to, I don't know if you remember, but when I was in elementary, junior high, high school, whenever they would come on the loudspeaker and say, hey, everybody, head to the auditorium, you knew, that there must be a speaker in town. And it happened, once or twice a year, right? So it was very rarely. They never told us when it was going to be. It was just always random. But it was like, all right, you got out of class and then you get to go and you get to listen. I remember every one of these people that came through and told their stories and motivated and inspired us. And I was just like, holy cows, this is awesome. Like, there's people that do this for a living. How do you do that? So I think I just kind of filed that away. And I've always gravitated towards leadership positions in sports and athletics, played in college, coached some college and high school athletics, had a teaching degree. Then I ended up in the insurance business of all places, right? And then I eventually started hiring coaches myself back in 2014, 15. Didn't even know that world had existed at the time.
You hired coaches for
so
you.
I hired coaches personally for business and life. I came back from deployment and, some things weren't going as great as I would have hoped inside of really a lot of areas of my life. And so I was like, all right, I got to figure this out. And I saw an ad.
Mind explaining that more?
Yeah, absolutely. I came back from deployment and I was 31 years old and I didn't know, I was married. We didn't have kids. Still am married, by the way, but 21 years now. But, I come back from deployment and it was super selfish as far as just felt like I missed out on a lot being gone for 15 months and wanted to make up for it in a short amount of time. Drinking too much and just not taking the time to reconnect with my wife that I can look back now and say that I needed to, that she wanted to, because I didn't understand. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm 30, 31, we're married. What do let's just pick right back up where we left, right? That was my mindset back then. And it wasn't healthy. And then we started having kids and kids kind of just magnify some of the problems that we had going on as a spouse. They don't make it easier.
They don't make your problems easier?
Oh, yeah, you
lighter?
would think so. Right.
Damn.
Yeah, no. So, and then, I'm pouring myself into my business because I want to provide and be a father. And I was just gone a lot and just didn't know any better, didn't know what to do. And, but I guess the one thing that I can credit myself with is I knew that I needed to make a change. I just didn't know how to. So that's how the coaching came into play. I ran into a program where,
Can I ask you a question? Can I stop you for a sec?
Yeah, go ahead.
You said something that I think a lot of fathers say. I provide. I provide. What do you need me to do? I provide.
Right.
And I think that's a big thing, because, quote unquote, the male is supposed to provide. That's historically been, and
I think that's something that us as men.
Please nobody yell and scream at me there, because that's just historically how it's been, right?
For sure.
And,
I think we also hide behind that, right?
We hide behind it. Yes, I agree. Go ahead. Explain it more.
Yeah, I mean, I think so you use that as a crutch and excuse of like, hey, don't you appreciate what I'm doing and building this, and the reality is, no, they want you to be home and be a part of the life, and like the money's great and the lifestyle. Yes, you should provide as a man, but at the same time, you should also provide some support and some love inside of your home as well, and be there for your kids and for your wife, and not just lay all of that on them. And so over time, those are the things that I've learned. And but yeah, back then, again, I was hiding behind it. I wouldn't come home. I would just like bury myself in work, and because of the problems going on at home, and I didn't know what to do or how to address them healthily, right? So I would just stay at the office and use that as my great excuse why I'm not around as much, right? So yeah, unhealthy for sure. And I didn't know how to fix it. I just knew that something needed to change. Luckily, I wasn't necessarily blaming my wife or anyone else either. I think I inherently knew deep down inside that there's some changes within me that needed to happen, and just didn't know exactly what.
Man, it's the best place to sit though, because if it's all your wife's fault, then that sucks, because then she's got to change, right?
Yeah,
and
totally.
then you have no control over that, like zero control over whether or not your wife changes. So
right, yep.
Was there a trigger point where you were like, okay, I got to do something now?
I think the trigger point was I think it was just timing, as far like it was literally a Facebook ad that I saw back in 2014. I mean, if you can remember then, there wasn't a lot of ads in 2014. And this one that came through it just like, it grabbed me, it was like, it was meant just for me, which is marketing 101.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I mean, they had me dialed in, and so, yeah, I took a risk and joined this program, went in all in on it, opened my eyes that there was this world of coaching, because I've always gravitated towards leadership positions, wasn't exactly excited about the insurance business, had built a good business, but wasn't excited about it. And so from there, just did a lot of work on myself to improve myself and start to improve things in my home and with my kids and my wife, and then also started to figure out ways of like how I could do this myself. So last 6 years now, I've been full time as a coach, sold my insurance business, and
you sold the business, or you still have it?
No, I sold it. Yeah, I sold it. Just like no plan B. Just kind of I sold it, was done with it, and been doing what I do now for, like I said, the last 6 years.
What was that process like of building that up?
Man, it's a continual process that continues even through today. But I mean, I've come a long ways. I worked with some other coaches that were kind of where I wanted to be, and partnered with them and helped them to grow their programs. Then I went, completely out on my own. Got into the speaking world and some corporate training and things like that. But really, what I love to do is work, like what I said, with entrepreneurs and small business owners, and do some one-on-one coaching, some group coaching. But I love running those events that I was telling you about, right? And then through that, I'll do some coaching, like year-long coaching, outside of that. And yeah, the process to learn how to do it, to figure out how to do it, it's just like, there's no real, you talk about blueprints, right? Like, you could find out what others have done, but you also then got to take that and see how you can weave that into who you are, because we're all different, right? And we all have a different personality, and we all do things differently. And in the coaching world, just figuring that out was step by step, a lot of failures along the way, as we talked about, right? And just, trying things, see if they work, if they don't. And through it all, you just kind of start to come into your own. I guess I very much, like I would imagine, coming into being a mixed martial artist or a fighter, of like, I don't know, from the first day you decided to go on that journey to, when you made it to the UFC, I imagine that there's quite a difference in between there, right? And a lot of things you tried didn't work, and a lot of things, but that you learn from, that you tweak, and it's just like kind of that same gestation, I would imagine, of just, I look completely different today, as I should, than I did when I first started 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right? You have to outwork your past in a way, right? Like,
yeah,
like I say this all the time on the podcast. I'm ashamed of the first 100 episodes.
Yeah,
like I'm like, I wish I wish I could just throw them away, but like I know I can, right?
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing, because you're like, man, and even some of your opinions change. You're like, man, I don't know if I think that anymore.
Yeah, did I really say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, did I really go around saying like this out in the world? Like, what the fuck is the matter with me? Like, so.
Totally can relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope we all can. That's the goal, right? Because I don't know, I think Muhammad Ali said it, right? If you're the same man at 30 that you are at 60, you wasted 30 years of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, who is the archetype of this? Is it now either the 24-hour retreat or the 4-day thing? Is it mostly men leaders? Is it female leaders as well? Who do you think your niche is, and why?
Well, that's a good question, because I've been thinking more about that recently. Just as like we call them classes. So eight. We got our 8th one coming in April, and it's been more and more male, like men. And I've been trying to kind of, like, because I've coached both women and men before, and so when I first opened this program, it still is open to men and women. But again, it's probably more so because of the physical piece to it that like scares a lot of people away. But when they come through it, like if I could just get them to see when they come through it and they do it, they're like, oh, like number one, they're like, I didn't think I could do that. Number two, it's like, oh, that wasn't, as bad as I thought it was going to be. But yeah, it tends to be a little bit more male dominant here, especially recently.
It's interesting how, when you say you've coached both, I sit in this really weird spot where, in martial arts, it's mostly men that come to my classes, right?
Yeah,
like it's predominantly male, but most of my best athletes are female.
Yeah.
Because like for some reason they gravitate to me, but I'm like, I'm loud, I scream, I'm not, right? Like I don't know what it is, because normally that is like they all start afraid to come.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but they know like how much you care underneath. That's what it is. Like, the tough love is fine when they know who you are as a leader, and like how much you kind of goes back to what we first started talking about, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like how much you care.
How do you show people you care?
I think it's just by like really, truly knowing the people, like you just really getting to know them and not setting yourself so much above them. Like there's times as a leader, absolutely, you got to put your hat on, you got to draw the line, and like, hey, I'm the one in charge. But at the same time, there's room, in my opinion, and there's people would argue with me, but like, I don't know. I guess you hear the term player's coach. I guess I would maybe be more of a player's coach, but not ever afraid to be the coach when I need to, right? If that makes sense.
It's like children, right? Like you can't be friends with them. Like I'm not friends with my kids. There's no way.
Right.
But I love them. We have fun together. We can still do fun things.
Yeah.
And we can joke around and all that, but there's a line to it. Right?
Yes.
There's still a line to it. And drawing that line, especially with other adults, can be very hard, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you draw your line?
Definitely. It's by how you carry yourself. It's certain, like, just standards, right? Standards, levels of, I guess, agreements as well. Like just holding to those agreements, being your word, and setting that. It's making the line very clear in the beginning, right?
Right.
I think in the beginning is most important, and then everybody just knows, and then you can go from there.
Yeah, I think in my young days of leadership, that's where I messed it up the most.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is I
Sure.
there was no boundary.
Yeah. Yep.
And sometimes I would step over the line and they would step over the line, and it gets very unclear, and I think and especially when you're dealing with another adult and you think there doesn't need to be, but there definitely needs to be, right? You need to have clear agreements on where everyone is, what everyone's job and role is, and how we will communicate. So I think that was what you just said. Man, I butchered that to death.
Yeah.
as a young leader,
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, you've learned from it, right?
I hope so.
I think that's that's it only takes one time for the line to be crossed and it not to really be addressed. Mm-hmm. And that's like the downfall. That's like, it has to be confronted every single time. And I mean, can the line bend, and are there certain situations? Yeah. But I think at the same time, you probably really need to make sure that you've talked with, the team about that when it happens. Like, hey, we all know what the line is, and it was crossed, and I let it go, and this is what was going on, this is what happened, this is why I decided to do it that way. And I think you address it when it gets crossed so that they know why, because there's got to be some give and take.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, there just has to be, and then you can go from there, and then they just know. They're like, the next time, like, the line is still there, and it's always been there.
All right, Nate, here I'm sitting here, 25-year-old Elliot. Okay, I'm not 43-year-old Elliot almost. Okay, and I want, and everything you're saying is resonating with me, and I want to be a leader. I want to be a young leader. Okay, and I'm leading maybe a small team, but I don't know if I'm a good leader yet. What do I do, man? Give me some steps, some books, where do I go?
Well, I would say the first thing, I have something that I created called the Integrity Bank. I've run some 100-mile runs, and the first time that I decided I was going to try and do this,
what did you say it was called? The Integrity what?
Integrity Bank.
Okay.
So we all have a financial bank account, right? And so the Integrity Bank is, for me, it was just doing what I said I was going to do every day, right? Because to run 100 miles, I was like, all right, there's a certain amount of work I have to do. There's a certain amount of miles I need to run, because I can't just show up unprepared and think I'm going to be successful running 100 miles. And not just being your word with others, but most importantly, starting with yourself. And so when we break a promise to ourselves or we break a promise to someone else, we're taking a withdrawal from our Integrity Bank. And there's so many people in life operating with overdrawn account in their Integrity Bank because they don't keep their word. They say they're going to be somewhere at a certain time, they show up late. They say they're going to call somebody, they don't do it, right? I mean, they say they're going to go work out that day, they don't do it. They say they're going to get up at 5 a.m. tomorrow, like tomorrow's the day, and they don't do it. They hit the snooze. So every time you're doing breaking one of those little promises to yourself or others, you're taking a withdrawal and you're overdrawing your Integrity Bank. And so this was just a model to help me to really become a person. My word is I'm just going to make a deposit every day. And every day I'm going to start with something simple. Like tomorrow I'm going to work out. I tell my wife I'm going to be home at 5. I'm not going to be there at 5:15 and justify why I'm a little bit late and why it shouldn't be a big deal. I'm going to be there at 5 because I told her I would. And so all of those little promises that I started to make to myself and to others, I started to keep. I would make a deposit. And the goal with the Integrity Bank is from the time that you made a withdrawal, because you're going to make a withdrawal, right? Like it's going to happen. Something's going to happen in life that's going to get in the way. And you just got to don't beat yourself up about it, but just the next day get back in and make that deposit. Because if you have a built up deposit or built up credit in your account, you have room to take a withdrawal now. So, but the goal is to, from the one day that you've had the withdrawal to the next, you want that gap to be wider and wider every single time. And so as a new leader, I think that's the biggest thing that you could do is really just become this person that people can count on, right? Because they want to know if they can count on you. Not, it's easy to count on somebody when things are going really well, but the true measure of leadership is when things are starting to fall apart. How does that leader respond? And one of the ways that they can guarantee that they show up and can be counted on when all the chips are on the table is through this integrity bank, just becoming this person that they know that they can trust and they can count on because you've shown up and you've done what you said you would do and you've been where you said you were going to be, for a long period of time, and to the point where they could trust you. So,
that sounds so simple, but it's not.
It's not easy. No.
Yeah.
Simple, not easy.
It is simple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not about being perfect, right? Like I said, hey, there's going to be days you have to make a withdrawal, but that's why we're making all those credits every day so that you can make a withdrawal every now and then.
It's just like your bank account. There's deposits and there's withdrawals, but you want the deposits to outweigh the withdrawals.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only way to freedom, financially.
Yeah.
So, what else? What would you say is the next step, right? Like where can somebody learn something, right? Like here I am.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't have time to come to your seminar yet, right? Or I don't have the funds to come to your seminar yet. One of the two. Look, I think books are a great way. What are some of your favorite leadership books?
Yeah, books are a great way. I mean, hey, Championship Leadership Podcast. I got 350 episodes there.
Yeah.
Come check out Elliot's podcast on my show. But books, I would say the very first guy that I came across early on in my personal development was John Maxwell. And I just love his books. And if you know John Maxwell, he's like, he's the GOAT. He's the OG.
Yeah. If he's not the GOAT, he's the OG.
He for sure is.
First.
He for sure is. And so yeah, check out his books. I love how he writes. His style is amazing, and there's just incredible content there. And I would say the other one, Jocko Willink. Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership, is an excellent book. And I think, and then the next one they did, Dichotomy of Leadership, was also very good. So those are, you can't go wrong with those two.
Yeah. The Extreme Ownership is, it's one, I'm not a very religious person. I would say I'm a spiritual person, but I understand the need for it, right? So in religious terms. So I have my book that I call my Old Testament that set me on the path of this. And then I have my New Testament chapters, like my Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John's.
Yeah.
And Extreme Ownership is definitely in my New Testament.
Yeah,
part of my Gospels.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
because it's just so good. Everything and people just. Man, I made this post the other day, right? And I stole it from Jocko's. Everything in my life is my fault. Everything.
Yeah.
God, people have such a hard time with that sometimes, Nate, right?
Big time.
Because they're like, well, it's not my fault I got cancer. And I'm like, yeah, most likely it's not, right? Let's just say that, you weren't smoking cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
But if you see it any other way, what do? You just have a pity party? I don't know what you do, know? Why do you think people have such a hard time with that phrase? Everything in my life is my fault.
Man, I think we're just programmed to look outside instead of within to blame. Because I don't know, I suppose it doesn't feel good to be wrong, right? Or to be the one. But yeah, that's why we need more leaders than ever, probably, because there is such a responsibility to take ownership when things are not going well, right? If you are if the buck stops with you, and if you're the one in charge, you're the leader, and the team is failing, it's no one else's fault. But yet, on the flip side, which I think is also difficult for some, is when things are going great, in my mind, like that's the time when you have to be like praising the team around you that helped you get there, which is like, man, that's tough for people. Oh, so what? I'm supposed to take full responsibility, even though everyone else on the team, had something to do with us not doing well. And then to flip it around when we're doing really well, I can't take all the praise. Like, well, you can, but like you're gonna ruin any culture or relationship that you had with your team by doing that. So
it's a hard thing, right?
It's a lonely place for sure.
It's a lonely place. Yeah. Because it's one of those things. Every leader starts out like, okay, so I'm a leader. This is my crew, or I'm the GM of this store, or school, or whatever. And you're like, I can't fucking leave. I can't leave. It's going to crumble without me, right? It's going to crumble without me. And then you finally get to a place where you can leave, and then you leave and it doesn't crumble, and it actually does better. And you're like, oh my God, I'm not needed.
Yeah.
Right.
Or as important. As
yeah.
it was. Yeah.
It's so crazy, right? Like the spin that your head goes on in there. So, leadership is such an interesting, as Jocko's book says, dichotomy. It's such a dichotomy.
Yeah.
All right, last couple questions here as we wrap. I always ask these two. And this first one, it's not to like toot my horn at all, right? But I think a lot of times when people think about like doing something like a podcast with somebody, you get a podcast invite or whatever it is, they want like this direct ROI. We're always thinking about things in this direct ROI way. Well, what am I going to get back out of that? I don't know if you know, Nate, but this podcast probably won't get you anything.
What?
I'm really sorry. If my team sold it to you as like, hey, you're gonna,
they were selling it.
Man. So why sit down for 45 minutes, an hour with on a Tuesday morning with a guy and talk about this when there might be nothing in return for you.
Yeah, well, there's always an opportunity again, as a leader to get better. And so anytime you are sitting down with somebody like yourself, Elliot, that's someone that you would respect and that you think is a great leader, as well as an opportunity to grow and to learn and to talk about what you do and to continue to hone your message and to get a little bit better. And then, as a leader, I want to impact and help people. And so if even one, I know that sounds super cliche, but if even one person were to listen and hear something that helped move their life forward just a little bit, like that's pretty amazing. And that's a pretty awesome opportunity. And that sure beats doing a million other things that aren't going to help create any value for the world. And the other thing is you just never know, like, something's going to hit at some point, right? And the relationships that you build through stuff like this, I've created some incredible relationships with people just through a simple podcast and conversation. And so, it's an opportunity. This is what I do. So I just I'm not coming in wondering what I'm going to get from it. I just come in wondering what I can give to help somebody else.
It's those two shifts were the biggest shifts for me. One, I don't need an ROI. Stop looking for it. Right? Just stop looking for it. Do you love to do this? Yes. Okay. Would you rather be doing anything else? No. Okay. Yeah. So go live your life like that. Right. And then two, just give it. Yeah. Right. Just give it. And when you do these things and if it's on you now, and it's not on anybody else. It's it's not COVID's fault. It's not the president's fault. Regardless of who the president is, then it's such a shift in your life where you have all of this freedom. Mm-hmm. You have all of this freedom. It's such a weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's like The Secret. It's the secret. So
right.
Last question. I think everyone has a unique gift that they either develop or in some way are born with, or a power. What do you think yours is?
I think I've always kind of said that I'm too stupid to quit. I don't know.
It's a good thing you weren't a fighter.
Maybe. Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, I just I don't know, once I have it in my mind to to do something, I usually just keep going until I figure it out. And the other thing is I would say, like, I don't know why I've been drawn to leadership, the topic, talking about it, teaching it, but I suppose it's always also been the same reason I've always gravitated towards leadership positions. I just love leadership. I don't think, one of the great characteristics of great leaders is probably that they don't say that they're a great leader, right? If someone calls themselves an incredible leader, then they're probably not. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about how great of a leader I am, but I just have loved leading people, helping people become better leaders. And I think I, do have some talent or skill there.
Yeah.
that
I agree with you. I hate I'm a good dad and I'm a good husband.
Right.
People saying that.
Yeah.
You're not the decider of that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
You have no choice. You have no say in that. I think I'm decent. I think I do a decent job, right? And I'm working to be better every single day.
Yeah.
But I can't say that I'm great at it. I work really fucking hard at it. And I work really hard at teaching.
Yeah.
But I can't walk around and be like, yo, I'm the best in the world.
Yeah. And hopefully in turn, the result is, people down the road say that you were. Right.
It's and I know I bring this up a lot, guys who are listening. I'm sorry. It's like the lion, not sheep shirt, that company. I hate it. I can't stand it. I love the idea. I love the idea to be a lion, right?
Yeah.
But the reason I hate it the most is because of this one day, Nate, on a lacrosse field. I walked out, my kids were playing lacrosse. This dad had a lion, not sheep hat and a lion, not sheep shirt and shorts from the company too. And I wanted to walk over to him and be like, yo, dog, I'm not saying that I am a lion, but I can guarantee that you are. I can guarantee.
Well, you got to have the shorts, the shirt, and the hat. Yeah, you might not be a lion. You're just really trying to convince yourself.
You're just trying to convince everyone else that you are, so they'll stay away. And my argument to that is look, Tom Brady has the most Super Bowl rings of anybody in the history of the world, and he doesn't wear a shirt ever outside that says Super Bowl champion because we all fucking know it.
Yeah,
we all know it. You're like, oh shit, that's Tom Brady.
Yeah.
He's got 7 rings. He don't got to tell anybody. Yeah. So that's why I hate that shirt. But I love the idea.
Yeah.
And I try not to hate the company because it's a great idea. I think it's just the person that's drawn to it that I don't like.
You're just not going to be rocking a hat anytime soon.
No. Or I'm not going to get it tattooed on me, So. Anyway, Nate, thanks for coming on, man. If people want to check you out, tell them where they can find you and if they want to retreat or anything, any of the stuff that you do.
Yeah, just go to my website, natebailey.org, and you can connect with me everywhere there.
Awesome. So, guys, as always, Nate has his unique gift and power that he goes out and he gives to the world. I have my own unique gift and power that I go out and give to the world. Don't go out in the world and try to be Nate. Don't go out in the world and try to be me. Please go out there, everyone, and find your own power. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found something useful that you can take and implement into your life. Don't forget to head over to wherever you are listening to this podcast and leave a review. That would be greatly appreciated. Also, go follow me on social media at FireMarshal205 on Instagram. Leave a comment, anything that you would like there. And as always, if you think this would be useful for somebody else that you know for their life, send it their way. That would be greatly appreciated. That's it for this episode, guys. I hope you all have a great day and you go step into that power so that you can give your purpose to the world.